Welcome to the Bearded Bama Bushcrafter. That works good. Man, it's turned off cold again. Highest today is going to be in the 40s. Snowed north of us here in Alabama. And it's cloudy. No bluebird sky. I'm ready for some sunshine. But the rain has stopped, and that's good. Rain can really damper your mood. But it's nice out here today, other than it's cloudy. Front pushed in, and cold front was behind it. Or colder weather was behind the front, is what I should say. So I thought I'd come down today and hang out at the shelter for a little while. And get a fire going and work on my chair. Man, there's something about getting a fire going at camp. Just really brings life to camp. Lifts the mood. I love the fire. There's my holes. I'm only going to do 4 up the back. I was thinking about doing 6, but that may be overkill. I'm fashioning these cross pieces. They'll go across, the other side will be here. I'm going to have to work that joint down a little more here on this hole. And then I'm going to have 2 more pieces, and that'll be the back. Then I'll have to come in on this side and go across. So this will be interesting if it turns out to be a chair. I love this weather. It is actually causing me, this working is causing me to sweat. See, get into camp, it may show up cold. You get you a fire going, start doing your work, and you warm right up. And when you're dressed in layers, you can start peeling stuff off. This little auger is a neat tool. Black Raven is where I ordered this from. I could not remember the diameter of this. Looks like it's about 1 inch. But it does a good job. If I am successful in building this chair, I will be happy. You know, I'm sitting here thinking about stuff, and when you're doing work, God's word tells us that idle hands are the devil's playground. And I'm going to tell you, there's so much truth in that. You have to be careful when you sit around and do nothing. Doing nothing, like being on social media. I catch myself doing that a lot. I mean, here I am making a video to post on social media to share with you guys. But there are a lot of things on social media that just absolutely do nothing for us. So I'm sitting here working. My mind starts working. Like trying to figure out getting these pieces worked down enough to where I can get them fit into the holes properly. And I've got my mallet that I'm going to use. So far I've been using my Mora Garberg. I believe that's the name of that knife. My auger, handsaw, folding saw. I used my axe a little bit, my small camp axe from Jack? I cannot remember the name. Frost. Jack Frost. No, I think it's from Frost. No, completely wrong on both names. Marble. Sitting here, I thought I'd kept the box, but that axe is from Marble. Little small camp axe. I've showed it before in some of my prior videos. But as I'm sitting here working, I noticed that my mind kind of becomes rested. I know that may sound weird, but it's not. I don't have as much craziness that seems to be floating around like I do sometimes. And I'm not idle. You know, I'm doing something. I'm creating something. I'm trying to create something. And my mind is working at the same time because I can see the finished product, but I'm far from that finished product. And from what I understand, what I'm doing is a true part of bushcrafting. I'm in the bush. Of course, I know this is like the Hilton, this shelter compared to more primitive style shelters. But as I said in some of my earlier videos, when I made this shelter, I designed it after some of the shelters that I stayed in along the Appalachian Trail, which they have some real nice shelters now. One of the neatest shelters that I remember was right there at Fontana Dam, and if I'm remembering that right, it was a 2-story shelter. They actually called it the Hilton. It was a real nice shelter, but one of my favorite shelters was the shelter that is just up above when you cross through the Nantahala Gorge there at the NOC, and you work up from that hostel. I think it's at the summit. I cannot remember that name of that mountain. But there's a shelter up there, and it was a multi-level shelter. And I remember when I hiked through there, I stayed in that hostel that night, and I had just finished 1 week along the Appalachian Trail. And I had another week to do. And I had met this family. The man, he was an American, and his wife, she was Japanese American. And they had, if I'm remembering this right, 4 children with them. And they were doing their homeschooling along the trail. And man, they were some disciplined people. He was big into poetry, the Japanese poetry. It has a certain name, and I can't recall it right now. And the children were doing their homework. I remember I got into that shelter, and the family, they caught up with me. And I believe they were headed to Virginia. And they got in that night, and I watched them in amazement at how disciplined and how scheduled that they were. The kids got in, they started doing their homework. Of course, they got their sleeping area set up and got all that ready. The father sat over there and was doing some poetry, and the mother, man, she started pulling out all these dry goods. She had this little pot. She got the fire going, and man, she started cooking. She had rice. She was doing everything with chopsticks. It was an amazing sight. And she started feeding everybody. Boom, boom, boom. And I remember as I was talking to them, they were very interesting. To see a father and a mother, a husband and a wife, working together like they were working along that trail with their children and giving their children that kind of an experience to be out with that kind of freedom. But man, I was so impressed with the discipline that was shown in each one of those family members, especially the children. And I think about that story from time to time, like I'm thinking about it now. And certain things stir my memory. And sitting here at the shelter, I'll think of certain moments along the Appalachian Trail. And I hope to get back out on it. I have finished approximately 400 miles in 3 sections. I started in North Georgia at Amalacola Falls. And throughout the time that I was able to get on the trail, let me correct myself. I did 4 weeks. 1 week, then I did a 2-week stint, and then I did another 1 week with my nephew Adam. And he was with me from Davenport, which is along I-40 in Tennessee and North Carolina, all the way through Hot Springs, and we finished up at Sam's Gap. And that's the last time I've been able to get on the trail. But man, I get out here and I start thinking about the trail. And I want to get back out there. So hopefully I'm going to be able to do some hiking sometime soon. The last time I was able to actually do any hiking was back in the summer. And it was right before I got sick with that COVID pneumonia. And I actually got a new pack for Father's Day. And I'll have to share. I don't think I shared that pack with y'all. But I'll have to share that pack. It's a real nice backpack. Super nice. It is a Cadillac of packs. But, man, it's funny. I'm sitting here and my mind got stirred to that cool story. I call them the family of 6. And sometimes I wonder where they are today. That has been, man, that has been some years ago. That was probably 2007. So, wow. What's that, 15 years? 14, 15 years ago? That is just think about those people and the discipline and how they would just day in and day out hiking that trail and putting the miles down. I'm sure they made it to Virginia. That was their goal, was to make it up to Virginia. And I think they were spending 4 months on the trail. 3 or 4 months. But it was so cool to see that. All right, now back to the chair. Anyhow, I got to talking about the chair and bushcrafting, and all of a sudden I was on a hike on the Appalachian Trail. My mind is truly set up in game trails. And I can go off this game trail, get on another game trail. It's hard for me to stay on subject when I'm talking, because I'm moving through these little game trails. And if any of you guys, if y'all hunt, you know what game trails are like. They go up and down, and they work, and they're all over the place most of the time. They're not like cow paths are kind of the same, but they're a little more easier to spot than your little game trails. So, back to the chair. Focus. I've got 4 holes drilled. I'm going to need to drill 4 more. And then my back piece, I got to be careful about putting everything together, because I want to have all my pieces. Because I'm going to have some pieces coming out here for the seat. And then I'll have some pieces out front for the front legs. But they should have 4 pieces up the back. I know it's kind of a pitiful example. But I guess if you can use your imagination, you can kind of start seeing it. This will be the back. Piece going here and here across the front. Then this piece in the front. Then I'm going to have some pieces to make the seat. And I'm going to use some bank line. I think that's going to be the best to tie those down. And probably what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some wood pins and come in the back with some glue where these holes are to fit into these pieces to hold them more secure. I do want the chair to last a while. I think it's sitting inside the shelter. It'll last quite a while. And as it starts drying, it'll develop its natural cracks and fissures or whatever you want to call them. But I believe this chair is going to be nice. All right, folks. I'm getting a little long-winded here. But it is 2022. Happy New Year. I hope everyone is doing well. And I hope this new year, each year I hope it's better than the last. And I hope it's the same for you. Appreciate you guys. Y'all take care.